There are people in this world who carry an energy you cannot explain, a depth you cannot measure, and a presence you cannot ignore. These are the chosen ones, souls who walk through life with a mission bigger than themselves, a sensitivity sharper than the average heart, and a spirit that refuses to be tamed by ordinary expectations. Loving them is not simple, it is not effortless, it is not predictable, but it is transformational. And once you understand the truth behind their nature, you begin to see that their complexity is not a burden, it is a divine feature. Chosen ones are not made for surface-level connections. They are built for soul ties, emotional resonance, and spiritual alignment. They feel deeply, think intensely, and move through life with a purpose that often isolates them. This can make them difficult to understand, easy to misinterpret, and challenging to love. But those who take the time to look beyond the surface, those who are willing to meet them where their spirit lives, discover something rare, a love that is sincere, loyal, intuitive, powerful, and unlike anything they have ever experienced. 1. They feel everything more deeply than others. A chosen one does not experience emotions in small, manageable portions. Everything they feel arrives in full force with a level of intensity that most people are not prepared for. When they love, they do not simply give affection, they give their entire heart, their entire emotional presence, their entire spiritual essence. Their love is not halfway, not conditional, not cautious. It is immersive, consuming, and profoundly sincere. When they hurt, it does not skim the surface. It penetrates the deepest layers of their being, shaking their soul and restructuring their inner world. Their emotional sensitivity is not a weakness. It is a spiritual instrument that allows them to connect with others on levels most people will never experience. Because of this heightened emotional depth, chosen ones often carry feelings that others overlook. They notice subtle shifts, silent heartbreaks, unspoken truths, and invisible emotional tensions. Their empathy is not something they turn on and off. It is an ever-present awareness that picks up frequencies that others are unaware of. This level of emotional perception can overwhelm people who are used to shallow connections or who avoid vulnerability. To some, the chosen one's depth feels intimidating, intense, or too much, simply because they are not accustomed to relationships that operate on such a profound level. Yet this emotional intensity is their greatest gift. When a chosen one chooses to love you, they do not offer fragments of affection. They offer a love rooted in truth, loyalty, devotion, and spiritual clarity. Their love is not rushed, not performative, not transactional. It is sacred, intentional, and transformative. It heals, it strengthens, it expands. Being loved by a chosen one means receiving a love that sees your soul, honors your essence, and supports your highest potential. Their depth is rare, their emotional world is sacred, and their love, when aligned, is one of the most powerful experiences a person can ever receive. 2. They demand authenticity because they can sense pretending. A chosen one walks through life with a spiritual sensitivity that many underestimate. They don't just hear your words, they feel the energy behind them. They can detect dishonesty, emotional inconsistencies, hidden motives, and half-truths before you ever reveal them. It isn't about suspicion or paranoia, it's about spiritual discernment. Their intuition functions like an internal compass that warns them when something is off long before the mind has processed it logically. This ability makes them incredibly difficult to manipulate, deceive, or mislead, even if someone tries to do so subtly. For some people, this heightened awareness is uncomfortable. Those who rely on facades, charm without sincerity, or emotional performance often find themselves exposed in the presence of a chosen one. This is why certain individuals feel intimidated or unsettled around them. They cannot hide. But for the right person, for someone who values truth and emotional transparency, Being with a chosen one feels liberating. Their presence creates a relationship dynamic where honesty becomes natural, vulnerability becomes safe, and authenticity is not just encouraged, it is honored. A chosen one demands authenticity, not because they are strict or perfectionistic, but because their spirit cannot function in environments filled with pretense. Inauthenticity drains them, confuses their intuition, and disrupts their peace. They thrive in relationships where energy flows freely, where intentions are pure, where emotional expression is genuine. When someone can meet them at that level, when they can be honest, open, raw, and real, the chosen one responds with deep loyalty, respect, and emotional intimacy. Their demand for authenticity is a blessing disguised as a challenge. It creates a love built on truth, not performance. It builds a bond where both partners can show up as their whole selves without fear. And when you love a chosen one authentically, you unlock a connection that becomes grounded, spiritually aligned, and emotionally unbreakable. 3. They are often healing from battles you cannot see. Many chosen ones did not become chosen because life was gentle with them. They were shaped through adversity, through heartbreak, betrayal, loss, spiritual warfare, abandonment, and silent struggles that forced them to grow in ways most people will never fully comprehend. They carry emotional scars that are invisible to the eye but loud within their spirit. These scars became their wisdom, their strength, their intuition, and their understanding of human nature. Because of this, chosen ones often move through life with a mixture of resilience and vulnerability. They may seem strong, grounded, and spiritually aware, yet inside they may still be healing from wounds that changed the entire trajectory of their lives. Their heart holds memories of battles fought alone, nights spent questioning their worth, and seasons when they survived on nothing but faith and inner strength. Loving a chosen one requires patience, because they are loving you while still learning how to fully love themselves again. They often need reassurance, not because they are insecure, but because they have experienced people who promised loyalty and delivered betrayal. They need gentleness, not because they are fragile, but because they have been strong for far too long. They need space, not because they are distant, but because healing does not happen on command. When you love a chosen one, you are not just entering their present, you are entering a heart still mending from a past filled with lessons. But here is the beauty. Once a chosen one feels truly safe with you, once they feel emotionally understood, spiritually supported, and deeply valued, they open their heart in ways that are rare. Their loyalty becomes unshakable, their love becomes transformative, and their presence becomes grounding. They love with a devotion forged in fire, shaped by pain, and purified through healing. Their love is not temporary, it is not shallow. It is a love that has survived storms, and because of that, it becomes one of the most powerful forms of love you will ever experience. 4. Their purpose comes before their comfort. Chosen ones carry an inner calling, a spiritual assignment that pulls them forward, often without explanation. This calling shapes their decisions, their habits, their priorities, and their relationships. While others may chase comfort, predictability, or temporary satisfaction, a chosen one is guided by purpose, vision, and spiritual alignment. This means they are not always easy to understand. They may disappear into solitude without warning, not out of neglect, but because their soul needs to recharge and realign. Their purpose is not something they can ignore. It urges them to grow, evolve, learn, create, serve, or rise to a higher version of themselves. Sometimes this requires sacrifice of time, comfort, routine, or emotional availability. For someone who expects constant attention or predictable behavior, this can feel confusing. But their moments of withdrawal are not rejection. They are preparation. They detach to reconnect with their mission, to regain clarity, to strengthen their spirit, and to stay aligned with the path they are destined to walk. Loving a chosen one means understanding that their purpose is not competition. It is not a threat to the relationship. If anything, it brings stability, wisdom, direction, and empowerment to the connection. When they are aligned with their purpose, they become better partners, more grounded, more intuitive, more emotionally present, and more spiritually aware. Their purpose does not diminish their ability to love, it enhances it. A chosen one will always choose growth over stagnation, truth over comfort, and destiny over distraction. And when you walk beside them, not trying to slow them down, not trying to dim their light, but supporting their evolution, they love you with a loyalty and gratitude so deep it becomes life-transforming. Their mission elevates everything around them, including the relationship. Their purpose is part of their identity. And when you embrace that, you gain a partner who is powerful, aligned, and destined for greatness. 5. They refuse to settle for shallow love. A chosen one is not impressed by superficial affection or relationships built on convenience, routine, or surface chemistry. They are spiritually wired to desire depth of understanding, depth of conversation, depth of intention, and depth of emotional truth. They cannot function in environments where affection is given out of habit rather than sincerity. Their soul craves a connection that nourishes, strengthens, and elevates both individuals. They do not want to simply be loved. They want to be understood, seen, valued, and met at the soul level. This is why they are often labeled as picky, hard to please, or difficult, when in reality they are simply aware of their worth and the sacredness of their energy. Chosen ones cannot pretend to enjoy connections that are emotionally empty or spiritually stagnant. They can feel when someone's presence is genuine or when it is transactional. They can sense if someone truly wants to grow with them or if they merely crave the benefits of their energy. They refuse to invest in relationships that are rooted in convenience rather than true alignment. This refusal to settle makes them challenging for people who only know bare minimum effort, those who are used to shallow, conditional, or emotionally unbalanced relationships may think the chosen one expects too much, but the truth is simpler. A chosen one expects honesty, emotional consistency, spiritual harmony, and mutual growth. They want a partner who can walk beside them, not hide behind them, someone who can speak their truth, not play emotional games, someone who can love with intention, not obligation. Yet for those who desire real intimacy, people who crave a love that feels meaningful, expansive, and transformative, the chosen one's standards become a blessing. They create a relationship that is alive, evolving, and deeply connected. Their love becomes a foundation on which peace, growth, purpose, and spiritual alignment naturally build. Chosen ones reject shallow love not out of pride, but because they understand the kind of love their soul was created to give, and that kind of love deserves nothing less than depth in return. 6. They speak truth even when it hurts. A chosen one is guided by a commitment to truth, truth of the soul, truth of the heart, truth of reality. They do not sugarcoat, manipulate, or dilute what needs to be said. They believe that truth is a form of love, a path to growth, and a gateway to transformation. When they speak to awaken, not to flatter. They will tell you about your strengths with sincerity, but they will also tell you about your blind spots, your patterns, your potential, and the areas where you may be holding yourself back. This level of honesty can feel harsh or uncomfortable to someone who is not accustomed to accountability or self-reflection. Many people prefer relationships where truth is softened, avoided, or dressed in pleasant lies. But a chosen one cannot operate like that. Their purpose requires clarity, and their relationships require honesty. They do not speak truth to destroy, they speak truth to rebuild. They do not criticize to wound, they reveal to heal. Their words may challenge your ego, but they will strengthen your spirit. Their truthfulness often creates a relationship environment where growth becomes unavoidable. Being with a chosen one means being with someone who will not let you settle for less than your best self. They encourage evolution, emotional maturity, and inner strength. They want you to rise, not remain stagnant. Their honesty is not an attack, it is a gift. It is a sign that they care enough to tell you what others are afraid to say. And when you embrace this truth, when you understand that their honesty is rooted in love, not judgment, you begin to appreciate the rare blessing of their presence. You gain a partner who is not afraid to be real, who is not afraid to challenge you toward greatness, and who is not afraid to speak the kind of truth that frees your soul. Their honesty is one of the highest expressions of their love. 7. They are protective of their peace and energy. A chosen one understands the fragility and value of their inner peace. They know that their energy can be easily drained by negativity, emotional chaos, or people who take more than they give. Because of this, they guard their peace with intentionality and wisdom. They set boundaries not to create distance, but to maintain spiritual balance. They choose solitude not to avoid people, but to recalibrate their energy. They remove themselves from toxic environments not out of fear, but out of self-respect. To those who don't understand spiritual sensitivity or emotional awareness, this can look like being selective, distant, or too guarded. But the reality is that chosen ones have learned, often through painful experiences, that their spirit cannot thrive in instability. They protect their peace because it is the source of their clarity, intuition, creativity, and compassion. Without peace, they cannot fulfill their purpose. Without boundaries, they cannot love fully. Without space, they cannot heal. When someone is allowed into a chosen one's peace, it is not by accident. It is an invitation into the most sacred part of their life. They do not open their heart to just anyone. They do not share their vulnerability with just anyone. They do not offer their emotional presence to just anyone. If they allow you into their world, it means they see you as someone who respects their light rather than drains it. Loving a chosen one means respecting their need for quiet, their need for reflection, and their need for emotional regulation. It means understanding that when they pull back, they are not abandoning the relationship. They are protecting the environment that keeps the relationship healthy. And in return, you gain access to a love that is peaceful, grounded, emotionally stable, and spiritually nurturing. Their peace becomes your peace. Their calm becomes your refuge. Their energy becomes a place of alignment and harmony. 8. They love rarely, but when they do, it is extraordinary. A chosen one is not quick to fall in love. They observe, analyze, and feel deeply before they open their heart. They take time to understand someone's character, intentions, emotional patterns, and spiritual alignment. They do not rush into connection because they know their love is powerful and life-changing. They are selective not out of arrogance, but out of awareness. They know the magnitude of their love, and they know it should be given only where it can be honored. When a chosen one finally decides to love you, it is not a casual choice. It is a soul-level decision. They give their loyalty, their intuition, their emotional depth, their spiritual presence, and their unwavering support. Their love becomes a sanctuary, something that strengthens you, heals you, and elevates your life in ways you did not expect. They love with patience, understanding, passion, and foresight. Their love pays attention. Their love adapts. Their love protects. Because they feel deeply, they love holistically. Their love touches every part of your life, your mind, your heart, your spirit, your dreams. Their love is not confined to moments, it becomes a continuous presence. They remember your fears, your desires, your habits, your vulnerabilities. They learn your emotional language, they anticipate your needs. Their love feels like coming home to a place you didn't know you lost. This is why losing a chosen one feels life-changing. Their absence is not just emotional, it is spiritual. They take their energy, their insight, their depth, and their devotion with them. But for those who appreciate their presence, who reciprocate their love, who recognize the rarity of their gift, the relationship becomes unlike anything they've known. Chosen ones love rarely, but when they do, they love with a force that transforms everything it touches. 9. Their presence elevates everyone around them. A chosen one carries an energy that uplifts, strengthens, and expands the lives of those connected to them. Their presence alone inspires clarity, reflection, healing, self-awareness, and personal growth. They do not force anyone to change. Instead, their spirit naturally encourages others to rise to a higher version of themselves. Being around them feels like stepping into a space of alignment. They awaken purpose, confidence, vision, emotional intelligence, and spiritual grounding without even trying. People often find themselves becoming more thoughtful, more ambitious, more self-aware, and more emotionally mature simply because of the chosen one's influence. Their wisdom encourages introspection. Their strength inspires resilience. Their compassion awakens the heart. Their courage motivates others to break fears and pursue destiny. This is why many people feel drawn to them. Something about their presence feels healing, elevating, and deeply familiar. But this uplifting presence is not effortless. It was cultivated through pain, growth, and spiritual evolution. A chosen one becomes a guide, a mirror, a healer, and a catalyst not by chance, but by surviving seasons that sharpen their spirit. When they love you, they bring this same elevating energy into the relationship. You grow because they grow. You rise because they rise. You expand because their spirit never stops reaching for higher ground. Their love does not just make you feel good, it makes you become better. It pushes you toward your purpose, aligns you with your truth, and helps you see your potential even when doubt clouds your mind. Loving a chosen one means walking with someone whose presence continually upgrades your life. They are not just a partner, they are a blessing, a mirror, a spiritual accelerator. Their love is rare, transformative, and deeply divine. If you are watching this right now, understand this truth. A chosen one may be hard to love, but they are worth every effort, every moment, every sacrifice, and every step of growth it takes to love them properly. Their love is rare, divine, and transformative. This is the Zillion Mind Channel. If this message reached you at the exact moment you needed it, then you were meant to hear it. Make sure you subscribe for more messages like this, and if this resonated with your spirit, type 11 in the comments section for divine blessings and alignment. Thank you for watching. Every chosen one reaches a moment in life where the pressure becomes almost unbearable, the silence becomes deafening, and the path ahead seems completely blocked. But what most people don't understand is that these very moments are not signs of defeat. They are indicators of a divine setup. When God is preparing a chosen one for a comeback so great it will silence every doubt and scatter every enemy, the process often looks like everything is falling apart. But in reality, everything is falling into place. Before we dive deep into these powerful signs, take a moment to stay connected to messages that strengthen your spirit. If this message is reaching you at the exact moment you needed it, a moment of confusion, weariness, or transition, type 1111 in the comments section for divine blessings and alignment. And make sure you subscribe, because more messages of clarity, guidance, and divine truth are coming your way. 1. Your life enters a strange, uncomfortable pause. When a chosen one is about to rise, life begins to slow down in ways that don't make sense to the logical mind. It feels as though every area of your life enters an unexplained stillness. Opportunities you thought were guaranteed suddenly become silent. People who used to rely on you or communicate with you begin drifting away. Projects that once carried momentum seem to hit invisible walls. This pause is not laziness, not failure, and not stagnation, though it may feel like all three at the same time. It is a divine interruption. A celestial hand reaches into your timeline and presses the pause button with purpose and precision. When God is preparing you for elevation, He removes the noise that could distract you from hearing His instruction. If He allowed everything to continue at full speed, you would move based on habit, comfort, or routine rather than revelation. This silence you are experiencing is a spiritual recalibration. You may feel restless, uncomfortable, or confused because the pace of your life no longer matches the urgency of your spirit. But that tension is sacred. This slowing down is not punishment, it is preparation. You are being pulled out of your old rhythm so that God can synchronize you with a new one. Breakthrough requires alignment, and alignment requires quietness. It is in this quiet that your intuition sharpens, your spirit awakens, and your distractions fall off. Think of this pause as the moment before a slingshot releases. The further God pulls you back, the greater the force behind your forward launch. What feels like delay is actually acceleration in disguise. What feels like stillness is the gathering of divine energy preparing to thrust you into the next dimension of your purpose. This pause is your spiritual reset. The air becomes still, the noise softens, and the atmosphere shifts, because heaven is preparing to speak direction into your life. And when the pause ends, nothing will ever be the same again. 2. Old things start falling apart all at once. There comes a moment before every major elevation when everything familiar begins to disintegrate. Not slowly, not gently, but all at once, as if life is intentionally dismantling itself around you. People you relied on suddenly become distant. Jobs that felt stable begin showing cracks. Plans you were sure about crumble unexpectedly. Routines that once brought comfort now feel empty and ineffective. This collapse is not random, and it is not an attack. This is divine demolition. God is tearing down the structures of your old life so they don't become cages in your next season. Everything that starts falling apart is falling apart for you, not against you. When destiny calls, anything that cannot carry the weight of your future must be removed. Old relationships that kept you small begin drifting away. Environments that limited your growth become uncomfortable. Habits that kept you stagnant lose their grip. God is stripping away everything that was built on insecurity, survival mode, or broken identity. You cannot rise carrying dead weight from past chapters. This season feels chaotic because you can't see the blueprint yet. When walls are being torn down, it feels like destruction, but to the builder, it is preparation for reconstruction. In the same way, God cannot build your next chapter on foundations that were never strong enough to support your purpose. He removes what you would have settled for so He can give you what you were meant for. Yes, it is painful. Yes, it is confusing. Yes, it feels unfair. But all divine transitions feel like loss before they reveal themselves as upgrades. What you perceive as endings are actually spiritual beginnings wrapped in disguise. The falling apart is evidence that heaven is preparing a new structure, a new path, and a new season that aligns with your true calling. What looks like collapse is actually clearing space for your comeback. 3. You feel a deep inner shift you can't explain. Before anything changes externally, chosen ones always feel the shift internally. It begins subtly, an unexplainable discomfort with what once felt normal. You may find yourself losing interest in conversations that used to energize you. You feel disconnected from old patterns, old environments, and old versions of yourself. You sense that something is off, even though you can't pinpoint what it is. This internal stirring is heaven, signaling that your spirit has outgrown your current situation. You begin craving solitude, clarity, meaning, and deeper purpose. You feel spiritually sensitive, aware of energies, emotions, and intentions in ways you weren't before. You might feel a pull towards something greater, yet you don't know what that greater is. You may experience bursts of reflection, sudden awareness of your own habits, or a rising dissatisfaction with routines that once brought comfort. This shift is the soul preparing for elevation. It is the shedding of old identity layers so the real you can emerge. You cannot ignore this feeling. It follows you everywhere. It shows up in conversations, in your sleep, in your thoughts, and in the quiet moments when you realize you're no longer the same. This inner shift is not anxiety. It is not confusion. It is transformation. It is alignment. It is the spiritual version of a seed cracking open before it becomes a tree. The breaking is uncomfortable, but it is necessary for growth. Your spirit is being tuned to a higher frequency, preparing you for blessings, opportunities, and responsibilities that require a stronger, wiser, more awakened version of you. When heaven is about to elevate you, it upgrades your inner world first. You are being prepared from the inside out so that when the external blessings arrive, your spirit is ready to carry them without breaking. This shift is the first whisper of your comeback. 4. Isolation increases. Not because you choose it, but because you're chosen. Isolation is one of the most misunderstood signs of divine elevation. You're not withdrawing from people. People are withdrawing from you. You're not cutting ties. Ties are being cut for you. Invitations stop coming. Conversations shorten. People who once understood you now feel distant. You may even wonder if you did something wrong. But what you're experiencing is spiritual separation, not social rejection. When God is preparing a chosen one, He removes you from crowds, noise, and familiar patterns so He can work on you privately. Greatness is never formed in public. It is shaped in silence, in solitude, in unseen moments where God strengthens your foundation, clarifies your purpose, and purifies your spirit. If people stayed around you during this phase, their expectations, projections, and opinions would interfere with what God is trying to reveal. The isolation can feel painful, especially when it comes without explanation. But this loneliness is holy. It is heaven's way of saying, I need your attention, I need your surrender, I need your spirit still enough so you can hear me. Every chosen one goes through a season where they feel forgotten, overlooked, or invisible, but that invisibility is divine protection. God is hiding you until the appointed time, when your comeback will speak louder than anything you could say. You may wonder why relationships are falling away, but the truth is this: not everyone can go where you're going. Not everyone can handle the anointing you carry or the future you're stepping into. Isolation removes access from those who might contaminate your growth, interrupt your healing, or sabotage your elevation. This season is not about losing people, it's about gaining clarity. It is a cocoon season, where the caterpillar disappears from the world before emerging transformed. If you feel alone right now, understand this: you are not being abandoned, you are being prepared. And when the preparation is complete, your comeback will be undeniable. 5. Attacks intensify right before the breakthrough. Right before elevation, chosen ones experience an unusual increase in pressure, warfare, and spiritual resistance. It may come through unexpected emotional turmoil, financial instability, misunderstandings with people, or sudden waves of heaviness that feel almost unnatural. The timing of these attacks often feels cruel. You're already drained, you're already waiting, and suddenly the intensity turns up even more. But this increase in pressure is one of the strongest signs that a breakthrough is near. The enemy does not waste resources attacking someone who is stagnant. He attacks those who are on the brink of becoming dangerous to darkness. These attacks are not random. They are reactions. Your spirit is shifting, your frequency is rising, and your divine purpose is activating. Even before you see it, the spiritual realm feels the movement. The enemy senses your awakening long before you fully step into it. So he tries to confuse you, discourage you, overwhelm you, or push you into giving up right before your blessing arrives. But what you must understand is this: pressure increases before promotion, storms come before clarity, chaos rises before breakthroughs manifest. You may feel fatigued, doubting yourself, or questioning if you are even on the right path. Yet this very discomfort is confirmation. Chosen ones do not ascend without opposition. The magnitude of the attack often reveals the magnitude of the destiny waiting on the other side. You are not being punished, you are being refined. Every struggle is strengthening your spirit, sharpening your discernment, and preparing you for the responsibility that comes with elevation. The attacks you face in this season are meant to weaken old versions of you that cannot survive your next level. The fear is being drained out. The insecurity is being confronted. The doubts are being exposed. You are being tested not to fail but to prove what has already been placed within you. And when the breakthrough finally appears, you will realize every attack was a sign. Heaven was preparing to lift you higher. 6. You start losing fear and gaining clarity. In the midst of uncertainty, something strange begins to happen inside a chosen one. Fear starts dissolving. Not because circumstances improve, not because answers appear, and not because the challenges disappear. Fear fades because your spirit begins to awaken to the realization that everything you went through was shaping you, not destroying you. This inner calm is one of the clearest signs that you are entering a season of divine transformation. The panic that once controlled you begins declining. The confusion that used to cloud your thoughts begins clearing. The anxiety that once made you doubt yourself loses its power. This clarity does not come from logic. It comes from alignment. It is the result of God pulling your spirit into a deeper awareness of who you are and whose you are. Suddenly you begin seeing patterns, understanding lessons, and recognizing how your pain prepared you. You stop fearing what's ahead because something inside you knows you are finally becoming the version of yourself God always intended. Your intuition strengthens. Your decisions become more intentional. Your heart becomes steadier. You may still be surrounded by the same circumstances, but your internal world is shifting. The storm may still be raging, but you no longer feel tossed around by it. This peace is not natural, it is supernatural. It is a sign that God is transitioning you from survival mode to purpose mode. You begin to understand the battles you fought, the betrayals you endured, and the delays you faced were not setbacks, they were divine setups for growth. This clarity becomes a compass. It guides you through uncertainty with stability and grace. It shows you that the confusion was temporary and the fear was an illusion. As your spirit becomes clearer, your path becomes clearer. And before long you realize this inner stability is heaven's way of saying, "You're ready. What's coming is greater than what was lost." 7. You begin receiving unexpected signs, dreams, and confirmations. As your comeback draws near, heaven begins communicating with you in ways that feel too precise to be coincidence. You start seeing repeated signs, numbers, symbols, scriptures, phrases, or moments that speak directly to your situation. You might wake up from dreams that feel unusually vivid, meaningful, or prophetic. Even simple conversations with strangers or random moments throughout your day begin confirming what your spirit already sensed but couldn't articulate. These divine nudges are heaven's way of revealing that the season is shifting. When a chosen one is about to rise, God increases communication, because He wants you aligned with your next assignment. You may feel drawn to certain messages, songs, teachings, or passages without knowing why. You may feel God speaking to you through intuition, gentle pushes, sudden clarity, or strong internal knowing. These are not coincidences, they are spiritual breadcrumbs leading you toward your next step. At this stage, your discernment heightens. You begin picking up on details you overlooked before. You sense truth more clearly and lies more quickly. Your dreams become more symbolic and purposeful. Your spirit becomes more sensitive to direction. This is God tuning your inner ear so you can hear Him clearly. When destiny approaches, divine communication increases. These signs are meant to remind you that you are not walking blindly. Heaven is guiding you. Your ancestors, angels, or divine helpers are orchestrating synchronicities that reassure your heart. God confirms His message repeatedly because He wants you confident, not confused, aligned, not anxious. Every sign you notice is evidence that the spiritual realm is moving on your behalf. Every dream is a message preparing you. Every confirmation is a reminder that your story is unfolding exactly as it should. These nudges are not accidental. They are preparation for the biggest shift of your life. 8. You feel a sudden burst of purpose, vision, or creativity. Before the comeback manifests physically, it always begins internally. After a long season of heaviness, confusion, or stagnation, something inside you suddenly wakes up. You feel sparks of ideas flowing again. You sense inspiration rising. You feel motivated in ways you haven't felt in months or even years. This is not random. It is the breath of God igniting your spirit. You may begin seeing visions of what you want to create, imagining new possibilities or feeling excitement about your future again. This renewed inner fire is a divine sign that your destiny is being activated. Chosen ones often go through long periods where their creativity feels blocked and their purpose feels distant. But when the comeback is near, God restores everything that felt numb inside you. Your passion returns, your energy reawakens, your focus sharpens. You begin recognizing ideas as instructions, not fantasies. Inspiration becomes guidance, vision becomes prophecy. This creative surge is also a sign that you are stepping into alignment with your true identity. You are no longer thinking from fear, you are thinking from faith. You are no longer creating from survival, you are creating from purpose. The heaviness that once clouded your mind begins lifting, making space for divine downloads. Ideas that were waiting for the right version of you to receive them. You may feel excited, emotional, or overwhelmed by how much is suddenly flowing through you. That is because your spirit is waking up. The seeds of destiny planted in you long ago are beginning to sprout. This is God whispering, "Get ready. Your time is approaching." Your creativity is not returning randomly. It is returning because what you are about to step into requires a renewed mind, a stronger imagination, and a revitalized spirit. Your comeback will be built first in your heart before it appears in your life. 9. You feel an unshakable sense that something big is coming. This final sign is perhaps the strongest of all. Even when nothing in your life outwardly suggests change, something inside you knows that a shift is coming. You may wake up with a sense of expectancy, go through your day with a quiet confidence, or sense a deep inner knowing that your story is about to transform. It is not wishful thinking, not delusion, and not imagination. It is spiritual discernment. Chosen ones can feel destiny before they see it. This inner knowing is proof that your spirit is aligned with what heaven is preparing. It's a calm anticipation that the pain you endured is about to make sense. The lessons you learned are about to become valuable. The tears you cried were watering the soil for the blessings that are now growing beneath the surface. You feel this shift because the spiritual realm is already moving, even if the physical world hasn't caught up yet. Nothing can shake this feeling, not doubt, not delay, not fear. You might still be waiting, but you no longer feel hopeless. You may still be fighting battles, but you no longer feel defeated. You may still be in transition, but you no longer feel lost. That quiet confidence inside you is divine evidence that breakthrough is not only coming, it's already unfolding. This sense of expectancy is the final confirmation that heaven is aligning everything: your steps, your opportunities, your relationships, and your timing. Destiny is positioning itself around you. Blessings are drawing closer. Doors are preparing to open. When a chosen one feels this unshakable shift, it means the spiritual climax is near. Something big is not only coming, it's inevitable. Your comeback is already written, already blessed, and already in motion. If you are experiencing any of these signs, even just 2 or 3, understand this: you are not breaking down. You are breaking through. Your comeback will not be small, silent, or ordinary. It will be a comeback that reveals why the battle was so intense, why the waiting was so long, and why God had to separate you before elevating you. This is the Zillion Mind Channel. If this message reached you at the perfect time, don't forget to type 1111 in the comments for divine blessings, and make sure you subscribe so you never miss a message meant for your spirit. Your comeback is closer than you think. Thank you for watching. Every chosen one reaches a season where heaven feels distant. You pray, but the answers feel delayed. You seek direction, but confusion seems louder. You try to walk in alignment, yet obstacles appear out of nowhere. Many begin to ask, why is God not speaking to me the way He used to? Why does it feel like my prayers are hitting a wall? What most don't realize is that there are subtle but powerful barriers, internal and external, blocking clarity, guidance, and divine communication. These barriers often hide in familiar routines and emotional patterns, silently disconnecting you from God's voice. Before we go deeper into these 9 spiritual barriers, I encourage you, if this message reaches you in a moment you needed it, to subscribe so you don't miss the wisdom meant for your growth. And if this resonates with your spirit, type 1111 in the comments as a sign of alignment, openness, and divine blessing flowing into your life. 1. Internal noise. God often speaks in stillness, but many chosen ones are surrounded by internal storms so loud that divine whispers cannot be heard. Overthinking becomes a constant echo chamber, repeating fears, replaying painful memories, analyzing every small detail, and drowning out the gentle instructions God sends. Worry pulls your attention into possible outcomes that never happen, creating imagined battles that exhaust your spirit before the real day even arrives. The mind becomes so saturated with what-ifs, and maybe this and maybe that the voice of God, which moves softly, is pushed into the background. God does not shout over chaos. He has no reason to compete with noise created by fear, anxiety, or doubt. Stillness is His language, and clarity flows only into a quiet heart. But when your internal world is loud, your spiritual receptors weaken. Even when God is speaking, you cannot tell if it is Him or your anxiety pretending to sound divine. The enemy knows this. He knows a quiet soul is dangerous because a quiet soul becomes aligned, sharp, and aware of heaven's codes and directions. So he amplifies the noise through mental clutter, emotional flashbacks, intrusive thoughts, and unnecessary worries, hoping to drown out God's messages. Many chosen ones are not disconnected from God. They are simply overwhelmed internally. They pray but cannot feel peace. Not because God is absent, but because their spiritual antenna is buried under layers of mental static. The noise becomes a barrier to discernment. When your mind is racing, revelation becomes distorted. When you cannot slow down, you cannot tune in. God's voice has not stopped. Your inner storm is too loud. Only when the chosen one learns to silence the mind, through prayer, fasting, rest, stillness, or intentional focus, does divine clarity return. Quietness is not weakness. It is the atmosphere where God's voice becomes unmistakably clear. 2. Unhealed emotions. Unhealed emotions act like filters over your spiritual ears, coloring how you perceive God, people, and even your own destiny. When pain from betrayal is still sitting in your spirit, you may interpret God's warnings as fear-based paranoia, or you may assume every closed door is another rejection instead of protection. Rejection can distort your relationship with God to the point where you feel unworthy of blessings He has already prepared for you. Trauma can make you resist what God sends because you have learned, consciously or unconsciously, to associate good things with eventual loss. Emotional wounds can shape your spiritual perception more powerfully than any external influence. Many chosen ones are not lacking divine instruction. They are simply hearing through layers of hurt that bend the message. It's like trying to read a message through cracked glass. The words are there, but the distortion changes what you think you see. When your heart is bruised, you start expecting disappointment. So even when God says go, you may hear danger, and when He says wait, you may hear abandonment. Pain becomes the interpreter, and pain is a terrible translator. It will always twist spiritual truth. Unhealed emotions also create defensive barriers around your intuition, making you hesitant to trust your own discernment. You become hypervigilant, questioning everything. Is this really God, or is it just my imagination? But the deeper issue is that your emotional wounds are louder than your spiritual sensitivity. God's voice is gentle, steady, loving, but trauma echoes in sharp, fearful tones. Until the chosen one confronts and heals the hurt, God's guidance will continue to feel unclear, inconsistent, or confusing. Healing restores spiritual accuracy. When the heart is whole, divine messages become direct again. The problem was never silence. It was distortion. 3. Wrong attachments. It becomes nearly impossible to hear God clearly when you are tied to people who are not part of your destiny. Some relationships drain your spirit, pulling your energy into cycles of conflict, gossip, drama, or emotional obligation. Some friendships distract you from your assignment because they anchor you to environments your spirit has already outgrown. Certain environments suffocate your spiritual senses, numbing your intuition and weakening your discernment. When you remain connected to those who are misaligned with your calling, your spiritual frequency becomes disrupted. God may be sending guidance, but the noise of these attachments overwhelms your sensitivity. Many chosen ones miss divine direction because they stay loyal to connections God has already released them from. Loyalty to the wrong people can delay destiny more than any spiritual attack. When you hold on to individuals who operate from jealousy, selfishness, confusion, or negativity, their energy becomes a fog around your spirit. It becomes harder to know if the caution you feel is God nudging you or the anxiety coming from their influence. Some people are not evil, they are simply not aligned, and misalignment can be just as spiritually destructive as outright harm. When your circle is full of those who do not share your values, your purpose, or your growth, the voice of God becomes faint. God often speaks through peace, but peace cannot survive where the wrong people live. Many chosen ones do not realize that their discernment becomes sharper the moment they disconnect from certain individuals. Once the wrong attachments are removed, the static clears, and suddenly God's guidance becomes crisp, strong, and unmistakable. The silence you thought was heaven withholding was actually heaven waiting for you to detach. God will not compete with voices that drown out His own. Once the chosen one lets go, the clarity flows. 4. Disobedience to previous instructions. God does not release new guidance. when old instructions remain unfulfilled. Many chosen ones cry out, "God is silent," but the silence is not punishment. It is a pause. A necessary, intentional pause waiting for obedience. Heaven operates through order, and spiritual assignments build step by step. When you delay obedience, you delay destiny. When you ignore a previous instruction, whether it was to leave a relationship, start a mission, move to a different environment, forgive someone, or fix a habit, you unintentionally block the next phase of direction. God does not waste revelation. He will not give you step 5 when step 3 is still untouched. Many chosen ones confuse God's stillness with abandonment, but it is really alignment. God is waiting for your action before giving you more. It's like a teacher who cannot hand you the next chapter until you complete the current one. Not because the teacher is withholding, but because progression requires foundation. When a chosen one keeps asking God, "What should I do next?" Heaven responds, "Do what I already told you." Each instruction is connected. Each step unlocks the next. Sometimes God's silence is a divine reminder. You already know what to do, complete it. But spiritual procrastination, fear, or confusion can make you stagnate. You may be praying for clarity while heaven is waiting for movement. You may be pleading for direction while God is waiting for obedience. Once you finally follow the previous instruction, the fog lifts. The next step becomes obvious, natural, and almost effortless. There is no greater clarity than obedience. When you honor what God already said, divine momentum returns. The silence breaks. The path becomes illuminated once again. Not because God finally answered, but because obedience opened the channel that was blocked. 5. Secret habits and hidden cycles. This is not judgment. It is spiritual reality. Repeated habits that weaken your spirit, even if hidden from others, can cloud your ability to hear God clearly. Secret struggles, whether emotional, mental, or behavioral, carry weight, and spiritual weight affects spiritual sensitivity. When guilt grows, prayer becomes harder. When shame increases, confidence in approaching God decreases. These cycles create an internal heaviness that makes divine whispers feel distant. The issue is not that God stopped speaking. It's that your spirit is too weighed down to receive. Hidden cycles often come with emotional baggage, regret, frustration, self-condemnation, and these emotions form barriers around your intuition. When you feel unworthy, you stop expecting to hear God. When you feel stuck, you stop believing clarity will come. The enemy uses these cycles to isolate you, telling you that you cannot seek God while struggling, when in reality, God is the place you must run to. But the shame attached to secret habits convinces you to hide, and hiding distances you from divine instruction. These hidden patterns also drain your energy, leaving you spiritually exhausted even before the day begins. When your internal world is heavy, it becomes difficult to distinguish God's voice from your own feelings of inadequacy. You may confuse conviction with condemnation, or you may mistake God's guidance for your own anxiety. But once you confront these cycles, not with fear, but with honesty and surrender, your spiritual clarity begins to rebuild. God is not looking for perfection. He is looking for willingness. The moment you release the weight of secret struggles, your spiritual hearing sharpens again. The heaviness lifts, the path becomes clearer. The voice you thought had disappeared was always there. Your spirit was simply too burdened to listen. Freedom restores discernment, and once the weight is removed, revelation flows freely. 6. Impatience. Many chosen ones desire answers instantly. Direction now, confirmation now, breakthrough now. Impatience becomes a spiritual pressure that pushes them into decisions God never authorized and timelines heaven never planned. When the heart is restless, the spirit becomes loud in all the wrong ways. You begin to interpret impatience as urgency, anxiety as insight, and pressure as divine instruction. But God often speaks slowly, deliberately, and intentionally. His voice is not rushed, and his timing is never desperate. Impatience is dangerous because it creates spiritual illusions. It makes you believe that if you don't act now, you'll miss your opportunity, when in truth, anything God intends for you cannot be taken from you. Impatience makes you step ahead of divine timing and settle for counterfeit blessings, opportunities that look right, feel right, and sound right, but are completely out of alignment with destiny. When you hurry, you begin accepting signs that are not from God simply because they appear convenient. You ignore red flags. You distort discernment. You force outcomes that were never meant to be forced. And when the pace of your life becomes too loud, the voice of God becomes quiet. Not because he stopped speaking, but because your speed makes subtle guidance impossible to hear. God's voice thrives in patience. Patience opens your spiritual senses, sharpens your intuition, and grounds your decisions in wisdom rather than emotion. Impatience removes you from that spiritual center. The enemy loves impatient chosen ones because they can be misled by urgency. He knows that if he can't block your blessing, he can rush you into the wrong thing before the right thing arrives. Many chosen ones have lost years, opportunities, and peace simply because they could not wait long enough to see God's full picture. But when you learn to slow down, truly slow down, and trust the divine pace, everything shifts. Clarity returns. Discernment deepens. You stop chasing answers and begin receiving them. God speaks most clearly to the heart that is willing to wait. 7. Fear. Fear blocks divine clarity more than almost anything else. Fear shrinks your faith and magnifies your imagination in the worst possible ways. It takes small uncertainties and inflates them into overwhelming threats. Fear makes you hear danger when God is actually saying move forward. It makes you freeze when God is telling you to step out. Fear creates illusions that look real, sound real, and feel real. But they are nothing more than shadows, designed to distract you from your destiny. When fear becomes the loudest voice in your life, it becomes nearly impossible to distinguish God's direction. Fear clouds your discernment to the point where every instruction feels risky, every opportunity feels dangerous, and every new step feels like a trap. You begin to confuse your anxiety with intuition and your caution with divine warning. Fear also disrupts your spiritual sensitivity. God often speaks in confidence, assurance, and peace, but fear speaks in panic, confusion, and worst-case scenarios. When you are afraid, your spirit becomes closed. You interpret everything through a lens of insecurity. What if it fails? What if I'm wrong? What if I'm not good enough? These internal questions drown out the calm, steady guidance God offers. Fear disconnects you from divine purpose because it convinces you that you are safer staying where you are instead of going where God is leading. The enemy uses fear to keep chosen ones small, silent, and stagnant, not because they lack calling, but because they lack courage. Fear does not mean God is silent. It means your inner world is too overwhelmed to recognize his voice. But the moment you confront fear, not by pretending it doesn't exist, but by refusing to obey it, your spiritual clarity begins to return. Faith restores your hearing, peace becomes possible again, and the voice of God, once muted by fear, becomes unmistakable, strong, and reassuring. Fear may challenge you, but it cannot stop you unless you surrender to it. When faith rises, fear loses its power, and divine direction becomes clear once more. 8. The need for control. A chosen one who tries to control every outcome unknowingly builds a spiritual wall that blocks divine flow. Control often comes from fear. Fear that God won't come through. Fear that things won't work out. Fear of losing what you care about, or fear of repeating past pain. So you begin strategizing every detail of your life, planning every possibility, and trying to anticipate every scenario. But control is a heavy burden. and it disrupts your sense